The situation in southwestern Syria right now with the Druze um, has now spiraled into a major, I would say, disaster. Why do I say this? From my standpoint right now, we have two options to explain what happened from our standpoint. We either had a inexplicable intelligence failure that didn't pick up the fact that there was going to be a Islamist blitzkrieg against the Suwede government, which is basically a Druze majority and area along with Alawites and Christians. Or we did know that something was going to happen and chose not to react. I don't know what's worse. The fact that we dropped the ball again October 7th, that we missed all of the indications and warnings of a major assault into the Suwede government, or that we did pick it up and knew the nature of the problem, but chose not to react. Now, as far as it being an intelligence failure is concerned, this would come as a bit of a surprise to me. Why? I'd been reading and listening to reports from Druze commentators about a buildup of Sunni Bedouin forces opposite their positions and Daesh forces. Now, this was several days before this onslaught occurred. Now, if I knew this from open sources, it's impossible. Well, nothing's impossible, but I find it highly improbable that we didn't know anything about this ourselves. So once the assault occurred and the Druze were able to more or less hold off the Bedouins, and they were a little bit unsuccessful at holding off Daesh, but they still kind of held the line against them. Then we had this Syrian government. This is al-Julani's Syrian army coming into the picture with a mechanized column with tanks and armored personnel carriers and the like, and trucks with the heavy machine guns on the technicals, as they used to call them in Africa. What I find kind of incredible was that there wasn't any effective response on our part. And slowly, when the scope of the disaster became more apparent, you had the government, our government, scrambling to figure out what to do. It was almost as if they had been caught off guard, perhaps. But what happened? Well, there was an emergency meeting between Bibi and Israel Katz. That was a waste of time. There should have been a contingency plan that would have been put into effect immediately to deal with this situation. And the initial response was pathetically weak, with kamikaze drones and a couple of airstrikes here or there. And as, again, the scope of this blitzkrieg Salafi blitzkrieg became more apparent, and Suwede city itself was being overrun, and Druze were being slaughtered, and Christians were being slaughtered. And suddenly, the Air Force picked up their interdiction of the Syrian army, their mechanized column coming down from Damascus. This was a completely botched operation from the start. Why? Because this whole area in southwestern Syria should have been occupied by the Israeli army that should have had a defensive position up opposite the Salafi groups, and we should have been hammering those groups, by the way, the Sunni Bedouin groups and the Daesh groups, ISIS groups in particular. We didn't do that. At the very least, we could have organized and armed a Druze army that would have been able to put up a pretty good fight to hold off all these forces, including the Syrian mechanized formation coming down the road. This didn't happen either. So what are we to make of this? I think what happened, and it's just a supposition at this point, is that the Trump administration made it very clear to Bibi that Israeli ground forces were not to be anywhere near the Soweto government or actually in the Druze areas. I think they also made it pretty clear to Bibi that they didn't want any airstrikes against these forces. Now, what was going on with these forces? A lot of these Al-Qaeda forces are actually being absorbed into the Syrian army. This is Julani's idea. In one unit in particular, the 84th Division, as it's called. And the fact of the matter is these units, and Julani is well aware of this, still owe their allegiance to Al-Qaeda. So the Americans have been greenlighting this integration of Al-Qaeda forces into the Syrian army. Much like the PA was allowed to integrate terrorists into PA security forces. Now, we all know how that ended up. So could it be possible that we did pick up the impending Salafi blitzkrieg into the Soweto governorate and were warned off doing anything by the Trump administration? There are unconfirmed reports that I have seen that suggest that this is exactly what happened, but they're not, I can't ascribe any credibility to them, but they're out there. Now, with these Al-Qaeda affiliate groups being absorbed into the Syrian army, Julani has a problem on his hands, and it's one that the American administration is just looking the other way at right now. The Trump administration, perhaps being pushed by Turkey and by Saudi Arabia and by the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, and even Qatar, are trying to play nice with Julani. And you can't, because the guy is a dyed-in-the-wool Islamist terrorist. And I think he's playing a game right now, appearing to be a guy that you can work with, as Trump said, while he's staying loyal to the Salafi credo of mayhem and murder and pillage. There have been some reports I've read in which he's portrayed as, trying his best to organize a post-trauma, as I call it, Syria, getting off sanctions or having them removed, coordinating investments by the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, etc. But it's not going to work in pushing for some kind of arrangement with Israel where Julani's Syria can become another member of the Abraham Accord is insane. It's just totally insane. So the question that I have right now is whether there was an intelligence failure. And I have a rough time believing this because, as I said, if I knew through open sources that something was going to happen, particularly with these Sunni Bedouin groups and the Daesh groups, that are organized along military lines opposite the Soweto governorate. I can't believe that the military intelligence here didn't know about it. This is a question to be asked. Did you know, and when did you know, that this Salafi blitzkrieg was going to occur? And second of all, there's a question that if we did know about this, was our response restrained by Washington? It did not want, or does not want, any problem for their effort to get Julani cleaned up and made acceptable for international assistance. These are two major questions to ask. Starting from scratch, let's go beyond, this is a third issue. We could easily have put 1 to 2 divisions of troops into the Soweto government and further north to act as a deterrent. And we could have begun the organization of a Druze army. I'm not advocating the absorption of this area into Israel. We could have kept it as a Druze autonomous zone with Israeli forces backing up their security. And we could have helped the Druze community in particular form regular military units that could have just swatted away without any problem the Bedouin groups, radical groups, and the ISIS groups, the Daesh groups that did invade a few days ago. That column, by the way, coming out of Damascus, I had read about also. This was not a secret. And from what I've seen of our airstrikes, it wasn't good enough. They weren't good enough. We didn't massacre that column to the extent that we should have. We should have turned it into, if I can use a 1991 expression from the Gulf War, the road of death. Well, we didn't do that. We hit them here and there and just kind of scared them and turned them around a bit. But they're still there. Haven't retreated back to Damascus. So somebody has got to ask these critical questions. Did we have an intelligence failure? Comparable, actually worse than October 7th. Number two, if we didn't have an intelligence failure, was our political echelon deterred from either preventing this Salafi blitzkrieg from occurring, or did it delay an inappropriate response, an effective response on our part? And was that caused by Washington? The fact that it was late in this whole process that Bibi and Israel Katz had this crisis meeting. Now, maybe, we're distracted by the problems with Iran, that, the intelligence services of a mind that, they're planning a surprise attack on us. And maybe we're distracted by events in Lebanon where, we're going after Radwan forces and in an attempt by Hezbollah to reinsert themselves down in southern Lebanon. Maybe there's a problem with this focus on Gaza right now and the bloody incompetent course of our actions there, just resulting in an expanding casualty list. So maybe there was some distraction. There were some distractions, but we should be laser focused on Southwestern Syria. There's a Salafi threat right on our on our border, and we don't want that threat right on the Golan border, where you've got thousands of these crazies ready to come across the border and attack our communities up there, bolt out of the blue. And we don't want an October 7th along, affecting the Golan like we had down on our Gaza envelope communities. And the best way we can prevent that is by putting enough troops into the Soweto governorate, expelling the Sunni population, the entire Sunni population from that area, organizing a Druze army, and deploying at least 2 divisions, mechanized divisions, of Israeli forces to back them up in southwestern Syria, and have the Air Force ready at a moment's notice to annihilate any Syrian army column of tanks and armored personnel carriers, etc., conventional army equipment, more or less, that's coming out of Damascus, no matter where it's going. Now, as of tonight, this is Tuesday night, Israel Katz and Bibi are breathing fire, saying that, if this doesn't stop, that they're going to hammer Julani directly. Oh, too little, too late. So again, maybe our press can direct its efforts right now at determining whether there was an intelligence failure, and if not, whether the United States prevented us from stopping this Salafi blitzkrieg before it got started. So this is Jonathan Pollard.